Hey guys, thanks for listening to Pacific Northwest Sports. As always, I'm Jay, and today we had the amazing opportunity to speak with Coach Chris Casey of George Fox University. Now, speaking with Coach, you're going to hear us talk a lot about just the history of the game, some of his opinions, and things like that. What I find most impressive about Coach Chris Casey is that all the accolades, everything he's earned, he pushes that to the side and he reminds himself and reminds personally me and hopefully you that the game of football is one step in the journey to becoming a better person. And that applies to multiple different aspects of life, whether you're going to be a lawyer, pastor, someone who works a 9 to 5 in a regular office. All those things are things that he makes sure you remember when playing the game of football. Now, in his personal, right, been at George Fox for 12 years. He's produced 89 all Northwest Conference players. He's won the Northwest Conference Player of the Year. He's had two of them under his tutelage, and he's improved year over year. The program has been amazing, right? And it's just he builds upon it. At one point, he was offered the job at George Fox, and he said, "You know what? I'm gonna do it, but I'm not joining the team, nor am I going to be taking control of everything until after I finish this last full year of high school football." And he didn't go to any sort of events, none of that. He took one call that entire time during his last year at Aloha High School to make sure they were getting the attention they deserve. And to me, that speaks wonders. So please sit back, enjoy the time with Coach Chris Casey and I. And as always, leave comments. Let us know how we can improve so we can make this a better atmosphere for all involved. Thank you guys, and have a great day. All right, I am here with Coach Chris Casey of George Fox University. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Just got in from a recruiting trip in the Portland area, so I live still in the Aloha Beaverton area. So instead of going back to school, I'm sitting here in my wife and I's bedroom right now. So anyway, ready to go.
All righty, then perfect. We already got you in football mode. So when I was looking up you and kind of getting your background, I saw that prior to coaching at George Fox, actually, you were a player at Linfield from 78 to 81. Now, I spoke with Coach Joseph Smith last week, who also played for Coach Rushman years ago, and he mentioned the streak. We talked about that for a brief minute.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about what the streak meant to you as a player?
Well, I played at Mount Hood Community College first, 76 to 78. Then I played at Linfield. And I actually coached Joe Smith there. And then Joe coached my last 2 years at Linfield before I went to Whitworth. So anyway, yeah, Coach Rutschman is legendary. He's had the greatest impact on my life of any adult outside of my parents. And a lot of my coaching philosophy comes from Coach Ad Rutschman, the legendary coach at Linfield. So, yeah, it's a neat deal. To have that kind of consistency and just to be at above 500 for that many seasons, it shows, I think, they've had really strength at the coaching position all the way along, and it's been mainly Linfield people taking over for other Linfield people. So yeah, I played there, coached there for 10 years. And like I said, coached Joe and had Joe coach with us on the defense and Jay Losey and myself. So it was a neat thing. Coach Rutschman never talked a lot about it, really, to be honest with you. He's very, very humble. I think that's the way to be. But it was just kind of an unwritten deal. If you didn't talk about it, it gave you something really to shoot for every year. Try to be, you didn't want to be the team that broke that streak in the wrong direction, for sure.
All right. And so I saw you were a recruiting coordinator over at Linfield in 85 through 94.
Yeah.
What was finding recruits like back then? What were you doing? Were you still going to people's schools individually, or how'd you go about that?
Well, it's much, much, much more competitive now than it was then. We worked very hard at it then, but you went to schools, you went to some games, you did a lot of phone call work. Now, I mean, you go out in the spring and do early recruiting just like a D1 school. You go to showcases and camps during the summer. You recruit kids all through the summer, all the way through their senior season. You go back to the school. That's what I'm doing right now, going back to schools in my area, the Portland, Vancouver area. You do that after the season. You make home visits. There's a whole social media piece and part to it, which I'm not favorable to. I'm not a tech guy at all, but our coaches send out those things. We send out a select roster invite, which some people call an offer, even though we don't offer athletic scholarships. There's just many, many more pieces and parts. It's so much more competitive. You didn't make home visits back then, with at least that I'm aware of. About the time I finished at Whitworth, we were starting to make home visits, but it's just continued. I think when Pacific came back in the league, that raised the bar. When we came in the league, that raised the bar further. This is as good a private school Division III conference as there is NCAA Division III in the nation. And when you talk about private schools, leagues. And so it's very, very competitive. We recruit the whole West Coast. All the schools in our league do, basically. Hawaii, it's a beast. It's a year-round process. You went to very few high school games back when I recruited at Linfield. We went to some, but not nearly what we do now. And the travel up and down the West Coast physically, and the early recruiting added on to the regular fall recruiting after the season, and the process of things that kids put on social media that you like, a select roster spot or offer or whatever you want to call it, even though we, again, don't offer athletic scholarships. So anyway, I know I'm repeating myself a little bit there, but it's extremely, extremely competitive. And everybody's recruiting the same kids. And that includes the SCIAC schools down in Southern California. Then you're going to have a kid that's going to be contacted by some school in the Midwest. It may be only one school per kid type of thing, but you're looking at all the small colleges, basically Division III on the West Coast, are recruiting the same kid. And there's probably a couple of Midwest schools recruiting the kid, and maybe a couple of JCs,
So what are you saying as a coach as the reason to choose George Fox above those other schools?
Well, we don't, of course, we never negative recruit, but what we look at is three things: atmosphere, academics, and athletics. And, atmosphere, is it a place you want to be at from a people standpoint? The buildings are important, the scenery, the location, the academic programs, the athletic programs, specifically in this case, football program. But the most important thing we feel is atmosphere, and that comes to relationships. So the most important part of the recruiting process is to visit on campus, and on-campus visits are much more extensive than they used to be also. But I think we have a tremendous campus from a standpoint of relationships, people that care about our students and our student athletes. And truly, we have a motto called "Be Known," that we want students to be known as special, unique, that it's important that you're on our campus. We want to live into your life. We want to help you get a head start on adulthood, or the best start you can on adulthood, through what you learn at our college. And we have a deep, deep care and concern for you as a person, first and foremost. That's tremendous at George Fox, just relationships, people, how much care and concern there is for students at George Fox. And then the athletic piece, it's a fabulous school academically. You can look at any publication, you can look at anything that talks about academics, and it's known as one of the very, very best private small colleges on the West Coast. It's just an outstanding school academically. You're in small classes. The average class size is less than 25 students. You can get personal help and care and attention from professors. Again, you develop a relationship with professors, but it's tremendous engineering school, nursing school, outstanding in business. We have over 25 guys a year in our program in engineering. We've had several guys in nursing, over 40 guys a year in some form of business, whether that's marketing, accounting, finance, business, economics, whatever it may be. A lot of medicine areas besides nursing. We have a full physical therapy program. We have a physician assistant program. A lot of guys are in biology, may get into some form of medicine, pre-med, whatever, psychology, communications, computer science, you can go on and on. But it's just fabulous school academically. And then, you know, if you look at athletics, again, kind of the 3 A's: atmosphere, academics, athletics. You know, we've won 4 national championships in sports at George Fox since 2004. So basically the last 20 years, women's golf, women's basketball, track and field, and baseball. So the McElroy Trophy, which is the Northwest Conference overall trophy for which team wins the most games and championships throughout the year. The last 7 years, we were second place 5 years in a row. In the last 2 years, we've won it. So our president played college basketball, loves the value of athletics. So, you know, we've been very, very successful in athletics at George Fox as well. So when you look at those 3 things, it's a great college to take a look at in that regard. It's in a neat location. We're halfway between the mountains and halfway between the coast. We're halfway between Portland, our major city, and halfway between Salem, our capital city. You know, so east and west, the coast and the mountains halfway, north and south, 2 major cities in Oregon halfway. It's a beautiful area, wine country. George Fox has a real college town feel to it, especially the older part of town around the college. So just a lot of neat things. We're a Christian college. We're very proud of that. You don't have to be a Christian to go to George Fox. You don't have to be a certain denomination. I'm a very devout Catholic, for example. But I think there's really strong morals, values, character on our campus, and part of that's from the Christian basis, you know, that, and kind of loving your neighbor as yourself as the Lord commanded us. I think there's just a great sense of that on our campus. Again, just the relationships and people and care and concern, and really wanting to help young people develop for their adulthood through their time at George Fox.
Amazing. And so after 94, when you finished over at Linfield as the recruiting coordinator, you went over to Whitworth, where you were the D coordinator as well as the strength and conditioning coach. So
You really
obviously,
researched them, Jay. Holy cow.
obviously thank you. I appreciate it. The being a coordinator at a college level is always hard. But now they throw on this extra duty to you and say, hey, you're going to be heading up strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
What was that side of things like? Was it a little nerve-wracking being like, all right, well, wins and losses aside, maybe I might get told like, hey, these kids aren't getting pushed hard enough in the weight room. What was building a program like that like?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'd coached 3 years at the Dells, then 10 years at Linfield, 9 seasons, but I was there 10 years and coached on the defensive side of the ball there at Linfield. And then again, was involved with all the recruiting coordinatorship and the campus visit coordinator for all the on-campus visits by student athletes. But Jay Losey and I had done the speed, strength, and conditioning at Linfield for the program. I had a good background in that. So I did it for football primarily, but I helped any other sport also that wanted assistance. But, you know, there's many pieces and parts to building a program. And one of those is, you know, your speed, strength, and conditioning work. I mean, that's rest, recovery, hydration, nutrition, all those things. And it's always kind of cutting edge where that field continues to advance. And that's great. We're always learning more, better ways, especially just the recovery thing and the safety thing. You know, you train for 2 reasons. Number one, to play as healthy as possible with the least risk of injury. The better conditioned, trained you are for a sport, that lends itself to that. And then the second thing is to perform at the highest level you can. And so there's a great correlation, not only with just the commitment that you make with training, speed, strength, and conditioning, rest, recovery, hydration, nutrition, not only the commitment you make, the attitude part of that, the mental part, but the physical gains that you make. So, you know, it was, and I was also an associate professor in the P department. I had taught classes at George Fox as an adjunct instructor, saying that right. But at Whitworth, I was also associate PE professor. So I had kind of 3 titles: strength and conditioning coach, associate professor in PE, and then defensive coordinator in football. And, you know, it's just a base thing you got to do in any sport, especially football. You got to train year round. There's just, you know, I kind of use LeBron James quote about shortcuts. He says, you know, here's what happens when you take shortcuts. You end up short. Very simple, yet very profound statement. He's talking about his off-season workout program. talking about, if myself or our team takes shortcuts in the off season with our workouts, guess what? We're going to have a short season, either not getting the playoffs, getting the playoffs, not go very far. So, you got to train year round to be a college level athlete. Only 5% of high school seniors ever go on and play college football. It's extremely, extremely select. And the Division III football is, people have no idea the level that football at Division III. We've had the Buccaneers have been on campus this year, the Vikings, the Falcons, the Steelers, the Chargers. The Steelers just called us again yesterday. The Saints called last week. The Panthers just sent us an email. We've had 5 players in the 9 years we've had football back that have had very, very strong NFL interest. And we've got a player that went in the portal last year, and he's a loyalty guy. He didn't go in the portal for the sake of going in the portal, but he was a senior who could come back and go to graduate school and play another year. Leon Johnson III, who was the player of the year in the conference as a wide receiver, was the first team All-American for us. He could go into the draft. He, could have went to the pro day at Portland State. Oregon State is what he would have done down the road if he was going to actually go in the NFL draft. He was going to try to go that route, and that's what the Chargers and Steelers had suggested if he wanted to do something at that time. Didn't know if he's going to come back again to get a master's degree or a graduate degree at George Fox and play football, plays last year baseball. But one of the other options was going in the portal. Well, Oklahoma State offered him, Arizona offered him, San Diego State offered him. Washington State had called us the day before he signed with Oklahoma State. He's at Oklahoma State. I know 2 games ago he had 9 catches for 140 yards. I think he had 5 or 6 catches against Oklahoma. He had a touchdown a couple games ago. There's a game where he had, I think first game he played a lot. He had 5 or 6 catches for 150 yards. That's 30 yards a catch. And he was playing for us last year. So it's an extremely high level of football, and we're very detailed, very organized, very specific on what we do, and that includes our speed, strength, conditioning. But it was a great experience at Whitworth. It helped us build our program there. They'd had some struggles before our new staff got there. John Tully was the head coach, had been at Southern Oregon before, then was in Illinois as a head coach. Kirk Wester had been a PLU guy. So you had a Southern Oregon University guy as the head coach, a PLU guy as the offensive coordinator, and a Linfield guy as a defensive coordinator. So small college guys from the Northwest. But a big part of building that program was the strength and conditioning piece. They'd had some struggles before we got there, and we had some struggles for 4 or 5 years, and we became a very, very good program. We were ranked the top 25 our last 5 years, at least the last 5 years that I was there. And then they continued to improve from that point. We went to the national playoffs once. I think they went to the national playoffs 2 more times after I had left and went to Aloha High School. So, but just to, they're all the pieces and parts. They got to go together, and you got to flat work at it, and there is no shortcuts. And speed, strength, conditioning is a huge part of that. It was a lot of fun. I grew as a human being. I grew as a coach. It helped me help some of the other programs there, and certainly I think we made some significant progress in our football program. Part of that was what we did with speed, strength, conditioning, the program there.
Amazing. So you mentioned you went to Aloha High School in 2004 to 2012. You were the head coach. Before we dive into the details and the resurgence that took place over there, why did you leave the college level to go to the high school level? Aloha wasn't your alma mater, so you didn't have this very close feeling. You went somewhere else. So why go down?
Well, I think we had 3 of our 4 kids were born in Spokane, and we loved Spokane, great place. We loved Whitworth College, and again, a lot of great things there. But we had always been people that went to the beach, the coast. That was a big thing for us. So we wanted to be back closer to that. I was born and raised in this area. My wife was born and raised in Klamath Falls, but her family had relocated to Salem years before that, the Salem area. So we wanted to get back closer to the grandparents because our kids were growing up. They were young at that time, and we wanted to get closer to the coast. And I guess felt like, hey, ready to be a head coach. And so looked into some college and high school opportunities. And Kevin Bryant, the AD at Aloha, had been the AD that hired me at Whitworth. So I knew the kind of administration they had, and it was a neat challenge. They again had some struggles, and I guess I could have stayed at Linfield and been very comfortable. And I'm not putting down anybody that has stayed at Linfield, but I could have stayed there and been very comfortable because they have a lot of tradition and history, football legacy already built in. By going out and going to other places and going to places that maybe had some struggles before, I think it made me a better coach. When you do something hard, you get better than when it's easy, I think. And it's certainly not easy. I'm not saying, again, it's easy at Linfield at all, because it's hard. What it takes to win one single football game, college football game, is astronomical. And in college football, you don't get do-overs. You're not playing a 3-game baseball series for the weekend. You're not playing a home and away basketball. You don't get days. You can't have a bad day in college football. Even the NFL, you play your league opponent 2 times. I mean, the Chiefs play the Raiders twice, home and away. You don't get do-overs in college football. And, and some people would call that pressure. We call it a privilege. It's an absolute privilege. But anyway, so just kind of a host of reasons, but it gave me a chance to be a head coach, and I thought I was ready for that. And it was a great challenge because, again, they'd been through some struggles, and I love the staff we brought was great. The staff we retained after interviewing those guys, I just thought, boy, there's some great people here. Again, back to relationships.
I saw that he was the same guy who ended up hiring you. I actually read the paper of when you got hired and coming over, so it was pretty interesting stuff just seeing that correlation. But so at Aloha, you rejuvenated the football program completely. You said struggles, and I think that's putting it very lightly, because the 14 years before you were there, they had won a total of 17 games. It wasn't the brightest of times, but you get there in 2004, and by 2010, you guys are 6A champions. So there's a lot that goes into those years, right? It's also high school, so it's having the right athletes come in at the right time and being able to adjust and work with that. What was that like for you as a coach, building that team? And I think a big part about high school football is the culture. So what was it like building the culture and getting them back to believing, hey, we can win any game we play?
Yeah, a lot of things. Number one, again, we retained a large part of the staff, which I think was really important. I think they were doing many good things there. I really do. But we had 5 or 6 coaches. It was 5 initially, then 6 coaches in building there the whole time. To have people in building in this day and age at the high school level, to have 6 people there, to be able to be around our student athletes all day long, to be involved with their lives outside of football, to be involved with their academics, to be involved with the football piece itself. That was huge. We had extremely supportive administration. Vicky Lukic, who came in as a principal the same year that I came as the head coach, her father was an athletic director. Her husband was Pete Lukic, who was the athletic director at Sunset High School and had been for many years. So she really believed in the value of athletics for the community, the campus, and for the athletes involved, all the teamwork skills and life lessons you learn through team sports. So we had great support from above. But you can't change anything until you change an attitude. You can't. Attitude starts everything we do is our attitude. And you can't change the man until you change the mind. And, the mental precedes the physical in everything we do. So, I remember going into Vicky's office after our first year there, and I said, Vic, I'm not a very smart guy. And I'm not. I mean, I'd score low on an IQ. I can tell you that right now, truthfully. I just work really hard. But I said, here's something I've noticed. This place is an unbelievable school as far as it's like a one high school town. There's tremendous support from the community, the Aloha community. Aloha is an unincorporated area of Beaverton. And I said, there's tremendous support here, and, the kids are humble, good, hardworking type of kids in our program. But I said, what I see kind of overall, just as a general umbrella over the community, is we kind of act like we're second rate. We act like we're second place. And I said, I have a ton of respect for all the other high schools, Jesuit and Westview and Southridge and Sunset, very affluent schools, and Aloha, kind of a different school socioeconomically. I said, I have a lot of respect for them and all the good things they're doing. But so I don't want to be like them. I said, I've heard all year what everybody else has and what we don't have. So we're worried about what everybody else has instead of worried about what we have and what we're going to do with what we have. I said, we're a blue collar outfit. We're a blue collar community. That's a positive. That's toughness. That's grit. That's work ethic. That's unsung heroes. That's doing work behind the scenes that leads to all the things out in front. That's the foundation building type of people. I said, that's wonderful. And I said, we shouldn't be ashamed of that. We should embrace that. That's us. And so, and again, I'm not saying some of those things weren't being done before I got there, but I think I made a real emphasis of building our identity around the fact that we're a blue collar outfit. You know, some people call it culture, brand, process, core values, pillars, whatever. We call it identity. Identity. What identifies us, makes us us, who we are, how we operate, what defines us. And you know, the motto we used was the word TAPE. It's an acronym. T for togetherness, A for attitude, P for perseverance, and E for effort. So you think about togetherness, you know, a team, unity, closeness, selflessness rather than selfishness or selfishness. You know, we over me, everything team first. And then attitude, again, begins everything we do. The starting point for everything that we do in our life. How I talk to you right now is dependent on my attitude. How you receive what I tell you right now is dependent on one thing, your attitude. And the Lord gives us total free will with our minds. We can think however we want. It's total choice to have whatever kind of attitude. You know, life is like this, up and down. Our attitude should stay like this. That's the goal. We shouldn't be good thing, good attitude, bad thing, bad attitude, good thing, good attitude. Then our life's like a yo-yo. What we got to try to do is, doesn't matter what happens, you know, we're going to maintain a positive attitude. Then perseverance is just overcoming obstacles. You know, and athletics teaches that in a great way. You know, we say, hey, we're going to face it, fight it, overcome it. We're going to find answers, not excuses. We're going to not emphasize the obstacle. We're emphasize how we're getting over the obstacle. It's not the situation, it's how we respond to it. Then effort's just flat hard work. So, you know, changing attitude was important. I think we had Oscar Cardona and Ken Whitley were two guys, and there's several other people that I'm not naming here, but Oscar had been the president and Ken Whitley the vice president of the youth program. The youth program they had kind of revamped about 3 or 4 years before I got there. So there's many foundational things going on that were already in place. I mean, your lifeblood at a high school team is your youth program. That's your lifeblood. And they had done an unbelievable job of that youth program, and we're on very, very solid ground and foundation there. So that was a huge part of it. You know, we, you know, I think again, when you look at our first year there, the most guys we had on any given day for the summer workouts, we had them in the morning and the evening, could come to either one. And they're optional, voluntary, but, you know, we encourage the heck out of guys, obviously, to come to the speed, strength, conditioning workouts. And you couldn't have let a wild dog loose in there. You found somebody to bite the first year. I mean, we, the most guys we had at any one workout was 12. The most we had on a full day was 24 at a 6A school, which was, we were 4A at the time, but still the highest level school. And then they switched that classification to 6A. But by the time we were done there, we averaged over 100 guys every day in the weight room on our 4-day lift, speed, strength, conditioning work each week. And so, you know, we built that part of it obviously as well. And, you know, we got a really good run of athletes at the same time. You know, I mean, you're not going to win the Kentucky Derby riding a donkey. I mean, you know, Mickey Mouse could have coached that team and probably won games. So we had at the same time we were able to, you know, really, I think, work towards improving and changing attitude. Because I told Vicky that day, we got to change attitude and we got to change athleticism. Those two things. You're talking about the sport of football specifically, but attitude first. And so we were able to do that. And again, with a lot of guys that had been there before. So it's not like, again, we're putting down the past at all. They were doing a lot of good things there. I've said that all along and retained a lot of those guys. But anyway, the three things that happened, Jay: changed attitude, just had a super run of athletes, kept all the athletes there. They didn't leave and go other places with the administrative transfer that you could. And that had been a problem in the past. I think kids really felt like they were having a great experience in our program. And parents felt that way. And the 2010 team, of all the teams, and I just finished my 42nd year of coaching, and I've been on teams that have had tremendous leadership, because you can't just have coach leadership. You got to have coach and player leadership. You can't be a championship caliber team without both coach and player leadership. That senior group in 2010 is the best group of senior leadership I've ever had in my 42 years of coaching. So really, you had, that we had really built our identity. And kid, you got to know it, you got to believe it, you got to live it. Whether that's, again, you call it brand or process, we call it identity. You got to know it, believe it, and live it. And our guys did. And great group of athletes. Athletes stayed. Guys had made themselves even more athletic and strong and powerful by our speed, strength, conditioning program. And it like I said, at the same time, we had just tremendous senior leadership. And all the guys that came before were foundational guys. We just didn't win the thing in 2010. All the things that led up to that, you don't build the house by starting with a roof. You got to build a foundation. And all the guys that were before that, starting in 2004, and coaches were all a part of that. We had, I had a tremendous staff. Many of those guys had played for me. Guys believed totally in our system, totally in our identity. So, I tell you, Jay, it maybe as one of the neatest, if not the neatest time in my coaching career, from a standpoint of, it showed athletics not only helped, we transformed things within football, it helped transform the high school. It helped transform the community, about people feeling so proud and positive about Aloha and not feeling second rate. And it was, in fact, my wife and I still live here in Aloha. I commute to George Fox about 20 minutes, 18 miles, 25 minutes a day. One reason is we still had 2 children finishing high school when I took the George Fox job. They're all adult age now, and I got 6 grandchildren as well. But the other thing is, we've just had an unbelievable relationship with the Aloha community. Just unbelievable. My wife was diagnosed with a very serious form of cancer in 2007. And it's a miracle that she's alive, actually, by the kind of initial odds they gave her. But the Aloha community, it's just unbelievable what they did. They started bringing meals when she was going through she had 6 total surgeries. She had a full year of chemo. They started bringing meals, and they were bringing so much food, and they'd bring like $200 worth of groceries from Costco. So we had to go to every second evening, and then we had to go to every third evening. And we said, we absolutely appreciate so much what everybody's doing, but give to people in need, give to your church, give to Portland Rescue Mission and Union Gospel Mission, and we're fine here. Then they wanted to do, and we didn't know all the stuff was going on behind the scenes. They wanted to do a home makeover for us. And we knew they were going to do a little bit, but they sent us away to Newport for a weekend at the Embarcadero in Newport, Oregon. And we estimate they did $60,000. And we live in a nice middle income neighborhood. We're not rich, but we're not poor. And we're very humble people. We believe we're a very strong Christian family. We believe in humility from Jesus Christ himself all the way down the line. And but we're not, we live we're comfortable and stuff, and have neat, clean things, and have cars and all that. And so we really didn't need anything major, but we were going to, re-roof the house the next couple of years, and we were going to re-landscape the backyard and a bunch of stuff. They re-landscaped our entire backyard, built a shed, resurfaced all the fences, put a roof on our house, again, landscaped the entire backyard, repainted the inside of our house, redid all the rooms and themes, but we had all new appliances. We didn't know this was, we just knew a little bit of stuff was going to go on. Our neighbors told us one day they counted, there was 120 people here at the same time working. Our neighbors bought lunch for everybody. But I mean, it's just unbelievable what they did. And material things aren't the most important thing, but it's what they did behind the thing. Westside Christian Church here in Aloha was kind of behind it, but they had Aloha Youth Cheerleading, Aloha Youth Football, the high school itself. The main group was, again, Westside Community Church. But I mean, it just, all these groups of people involved with Aloha High School athletics, or Aloha High School itself, or Aloha, jumped in, and we didn't even need this done for us. Hell, they were going to buy us a car. And I finally said, absolutely, because we had plenty of cars and our kids were driving. I said, please do that for somebody that needs it. And so anyway, I'm not bragging about that. I'm just showing the love affair we've had with the Aloha community, you know, through the football program. And it shows again what athletics do for a community by bringing people together. You know, everybody huddled underneath a set of lights on Friday night in a town, even a lot of the small towns all around Oregon, the whole community supporting a football program or any other sport, you know. And so the neat thing about athletics. The other thing I would add real quick, Jay, you know, our identity on top of the whole thing is building championship people, building a championship program. Our number one goal is to develop young men for life. You know, when you look at it as a marriage a team, does raising a family take teamwork? Is there any job that doesn't require teamwork to work at its high level, excellence, championship level? And we believe the life lessons, teamwork skills you learn in athletics are just invaluable. So our first job is to build young men for life. And I've always felt that calling from the Lord to develop young men to become adult men, the best future husbands, fathers, workers, citizens, community members, employees, employers they can be. And number two, to build a championship program. The last thing I would say, you have to play to a championship level in a championship game to, in fact, win a championship. And in the championship game in 2010, our guys played the first half, maybe as good a half of football as any team's ever played that I've coached. We were up 17-0, I believe it was at halftime. But I mean, we won 34-13, and Halton was a very, very good team. Rob Hasten, their head coach, I had coached in college football. So quite a deal. Anyway, a long story about the Aloha thing, but it was a lot. And I'm sure I'm missing somebody, leaving somebody out, some group out, and I apologize, but it was definitely a community thing. That's the way you have to do things at Aloha. You know, they're at a different, they're different than the other high schools in the area, just socioeconomically that way. And here you got to do everything as a community. I was told my very first day here, you never say you're from Beaverton, you say you're from Aloha. So those got a special unity to them for sure as a community, and the high school is probably the focal point of that. And I was very honored and proud to be a part of that.
It's amazing. And they made a good choice in having you come on over. I think it worked out for you and your family and the community as a whole as well.
Yeah.
And so I was reading a little bit more, and I want to make sure I got this accurate. You were offered the job in January of 2013 to go to George Fox, but you accepted it in February, but you asked to have it start in 2014, so you weren't turning over the program in mid-spring and getting a new head coach in there to push everything through. So you asked essentially like, hey, I want the job. Can you guys give me a year? Let me finish off a year with your kids.
Yeah, you got most of that right, Jay. 2012, I was offered the position. So not 2013, 2012. And it may have been more, but it might have been January, but I told them I would not talk to them until after our season was over, and that included the awards bank. I said, I'm not, my entire effort and energy is going towards Aloha only. Once I interviewed in January, and then I think it was February sometime when they offered me the position, there was kind of two, and I didn't make a final decision, I think, until March. So it was already, yes, into the spring. Yeah, I didn't want to leave that late. And again, I'm a loyalty guy, I really am. And number two, really the college, after talking to them further, felt like, you know, if we had another year to really, because they were going to build a brand new facility and everything, it gave them a little bit more. They had raised $7.4 million of private donation money to restart the program. Again, they just didn't do it in one day. They started 6 or 8 years before this. Craig Taylor, the AD, and Robin Baker, the president, this was kind of their goal to restart football at George Fox. So they had started talking and planning years before and starting to raise money. But it worked to not leave to leave Aloha in the spring. And Bill Volk had already been on staff there, was going to be the new head coach. And he could kind of shadow me for a year and go to the league meetings and do all that stuff and kind of get his feet wet. It was by far the best way to leave for the Aloha community to be able to coach that last season. The senior group there were just a tremendous group that were a part of that 2010 state championship team. Braden Kersley and Bryson Sullivan and Thomas Tyner and that whole group. And I know I'm leaving a lot of guys out, but there was several sophomores that were a big part of that state championship team that were seniors in 2012. So that allowed me to kind of coach them there last year. So I went to, and the Beaverton School District was gracious enough to let me go in the middle of the year. So I left January 1, 2013 and went to George Fox. We had a year as a staff to start building and a half a recruiting cycle that year to start playing in 2014. So, and again, when I was at Aloha, I told George Fox, I will do nothing after I accepted the job, but was going to coach a lot. I said, I will do nothing, George Fox, absolutely nothing until January 1, 2013. I want my entire everything devoted to Aloha. So the only thing I did was I went to a golf tournament at the Reserve in Aloha, which was a George Fox overall athletics golf tournament, just to be there and greet people. And then I took one phone call that had to do with the architecture of the new building that they were going to build that they hadn't started at that time, but they were going to start. That's all I did. I did no recruiting. I did absolutely not one thing because I wanted every ounce of my being as a coach dedicated, devoted to Aloha until I was done coaching there. And I truly did that. So, but yeah, that's kind of the timeline, Jay. So you're almost right. You just had it was 2013 rather than 2012.
Got to research a little bit better next time. So you
done a good job. I appreciate guys that are detailed and specific and that are organized. And if this day and age we live in, everything's general and blasé because our phones become our brain. We don't use the brain the Lord gave us anymore because our phone does what our brain used to do. A 1 inch by 3 inch piece of plastic controls our entire life. So when you don't practice something, you're not very good at it. We don't practice using our memory. We don't practice, doing things anymore. Communications become devalued and I tell our players this stuff all the time. It's just become so devalued, communication, because everything's just fast text message. People don't talk in person. People don't talk by phone. People don't want to have tough, difficult conversations. People want to text and shortcut everything. And I don't think it's made us better in life. And my job's to make our players the best they can be in life. So if something's hindering that, I'm going to tell them. And so they get lectured for me about technology all the time. But it's taken away from, again, people being very, instead of being specific about what I'm doing and detailed, I think things are very general and blasé. And I think it's better to be specific and detailed when you're doing things. So anyway, don't get me started on technology. I don't text. I've never texted unless it's a family thing. Never. I refuse to text. I've never been on social media. I've never been. Our assistant coaches that work in conjunction with our sports marketing group in the athletic department, they do I've never been on our social media site one time in 9 years since I've been here. Never. I don't even know what's on there, except I trust what's on there because of our coaches. I wouldn't let something be on there. But I leave it in their hands. I've never even been on there one time, ever. I've never been on social media of anybody's, ever. And I ain't going to be, to tell you the truth.
Hey, that's fair. I like it. And so you accepted this job, and you mentioned you got half a recruiting cycle in.
Yep.
So what was that like, trying to come in essentially at kind of like the last minute and say, hey, I know you're thinking about these other schools, but wait, we're starting a football program. Why don't you look at coming over here?
Well, and some guys had already made decisions, but there were still some, good student athletes left, and there were some guys that we had to develop. And we came in and we recruited our tails off starting about the middle of February. I got hired in January. We didn't hire the first two full-time assistants, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, John Bates and Ken Ingram, until February, or late January, early February. Then we started recruiting in the middle of February. We had some other coaches that were going to be on staff that were going to be either in a full-time role as we developed contracts, or they were going to be in a stipend pay role that we started recruiting. And, we brought in a group of kids and we trained. We had no rules on us because we were not officially an NCAA team yet. And so we trained really speed, strength, conditioning. Saturdays, we did stuff as if it was a game. We did all kinds of what do you call it? There were kind of team building activities, but they were you know, the Pro Bowl now, with the Pro
Yep.
Bowl, they do all the game activities. We did all stuff like that. So we would treat the week in practice, lift in the mornings, practice in the afternoon, and we would on Saturdays do some kind of game activities, team building stuff, basically at 1:30 in the afternoon, the same time we'd be playing a game. And so those guys knew we're training all year, not playing football. And so that group, you know, again, great foundational guys, tremendous loyalty to the program, and we're really the starting point. A lot of fun. We'll look back on it, you know, and heck, we made a lot of mistakes. I mean, holy cow. You know, Tom Brady talks about, you know, you win or you learn. If you don't win, he doesn't use the word lose. If you don't win, what did I learn because we didn't get it done, so I don't make that same mistake again and I improve beyond that. And so restarting an entire program, holy cow. I mean, we had a lot of trial and error, a lot of learning and growing because of it. You know, again, you get better when you go through difficulties, I think, than when it's hard. You know, I always say you learn more from losing than you do from winning. I just say I don't want to get a PhD in that.
It's fair. Well, your first full year, right, when you actually
Yep.
have the games and everything, you guys
Yep.
went 1-8.
Yep.
And then the next year you climb up, you go on 4-6, and then the next year, 2016, you get to 5-4. The first time George Fox had a winning record since 1960. The program was discontinued in 63, so there was a couple of years there where they weren't as successful towards the end, but that was a big deal. What was that like for you to kind of see everything turn now, where it's like, all right, we got a winning record, we're starting to go the right way?
Yeah. Well, I guess a couple things. Number one, not everything's on the scoreboard, winning and losing. Again, it's development of young men, building championship people. But yeah, championship program, part of that's winning. And, you know, Coach Rutschman always said, you know, you don't get confidence and win. That's not the sequence. You have to win at some point. That gives you confidence to know you can win, and you continue improving from that point forward. And so you had to get to the point where you start winning games, not just being close or not just playing well, as you continue to improve. And we did that. And that's a lot of hard work by the assistant coaches, a lot of just tremendous work by our players, a lot of help, again, from our administration, our athletic department. It always takes a team effort. But, you know, you get confidence when you win. And that was kind of the next piece after building just the foundation those first couple seasons. Now we went 5-4. You won more games than you lost, a real confidence builder. And we just continued to improve from there. We improved recruiting. We improved our yearly protocol and schedule. We improved our in-season schedule. We improved our game day. You know, how we operate on a game day. Every little thing has, again, value and meaning, leading all the way up to now you play a game. And the game is test time. It's practice to game. It's preparation to performance. It's roots to fruits. You know, you got to grow the roots of a tree first to produce the fruits on the tree. So you see all those things come into play in a game, and now in a game you got to perform. Moment of truth. And many people, as I said earlier, would call that pressure, because again, you don't get do-overs in college football. I call it a privilege. It means it's that important. It means it's that moment is that valuable, has that much meaning to it. It's kind of like if you had two teams playing that are over, in the ninth game of the season doesn't bring two teams that are 9-0 means a whole bunch more. So with performing at a higher level brings more pressure. Well, it's a privilege. That means you're performing at a high level, so it's very important. And so, you know, we continue to grow from kind of that third year where we finally went above 500. And again, it's just such a fine line, Jay. It's unbelievable what it takes to win one single college football game. The work that goes through an entire week of preparation and planning and meetings and film analysis and all of your in-season speed, strength, conditioning and yoga and hydrotherapy and all of your treatment, rehabilitation of injuries, our athletic training staff, the practices themselves, what it takes, a scouting report on a team, setting up a game plan. It's astronomical what it takes to win one single football game. And if somebody shadowed a football program for a week and saw the complexity, they would be absolutely shocked. I mean, shocked what it takes. And so, but that's the challenge of it. That's the privilege of it. That's what it takes. And we've just continued to grow from there.
It's an amazing thing. In 2017, you guys turned it, you improved again, right? You
Yep.
end up upsetting 2 top 25 teams. You guys ended up getting ranked in the top 25.
Yep.
I believe you got as high as number 19 in the nation. So you just got that target on your back, and you've improved year over year. So what are some things now in the present day that you're looking for in recruits that's a non-negotiable? Last week, when I was talking with Coach, he mentioned that you got to love football, have a deep love for it. And he kind of went into depth on that. So for you, what are some things it's non-negotiable? You're either coming here, and when you do, this is what it is.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because one of our coaches, just in our recruiting process this week, being at one of the high schools, one of our coaches was there to talk to a specific position as one of our position coaches, telling the players, you have to absolutely love football. You have to absolutely love it to do it. If you're a Division III football player, Jay, you're there on two things: academic scholarship money and financial aid based on need. And you're at a private school that costs a lot of money, and you're an extremely rigorous, high, as we said earlier, academic rigor school, and you're in, most of the time, very, very high level major, and you're probably have a work study job on campus, and you have a job off campus in the off season. You're having to work the whole summer. You can't do anything different for an athlete at Division III than you can a regular student. So we can't have a separate training table, things like that. And so you have to truly love football and really want to play it, because of what it takes to be a Division III football player, especially at a private institution. And so if you're talking about Coach Smith saying that, he's exactly right. Just, you have to and again, just interesting you say that, because one of our coaches was just talking to a group of recruits about that. You have to absolutely, and our guys know that. We bring in about 50 recruits on average per year, and when you get done on senior day, you have about 25. And it's not because they weren't having a good experience. We've never had a guy leave our program said he has a bad experience, but it's always because the commitment level that it takes. And you talk about life circumstances, you talk about eligibility, you talk about finances, you talk about all these things, and they're all good guys that have left the program. They're going to be very successful at something else. But what it takes to stay, the loyalty, the work ethic, the just flat attitude, the finding answers, not excuses, the absolute toughness and grit that it takes to stay, especially at a Division III private college, is. I was talking to a scout from the 49ers about 3 weeks ago. Again, I called about one of our offensive tackles on our team, and the current offensive tackle. And we got into talking about some of this. And after I told him what a Division III football player does in a 1 week's time, he was just absolutely astounded. He'd played Division I football. He'd been in the NFL. He was astounded at what I told him. And so, yes, you have to love it. But, one thing is, we want guys that are team guys. We want guys that are good attitude guys. Obviously, you have to have good GPA, your academic profile to get in. And we want guys that are loyalty guys, and we try to project, is a guy going to stay all 4 years? We ask the coach those kind of questions. We ask the player those kind of questions. We talk to parents about that. And then, can you help us play ability wise? Can you help us play to excellence championship level relative Northwest Conference Division III football? And, we look at everything we do, that we want our players to do as a person and a student and an athlete's excellence championship level, nothing less. If I ever do not give our players my best, and if I ever do not demand their best, I shouldn't be coaching any longer. Shouldn't be coaching another day. because then it's not the full max of what they can get from me or what I demand from them. And George Fox, we tell them, George Fox just told a group of parents this the other day, recruiting day, George Fox academics, absolutely sky high level. Our football program, sky high level, how we operate. And we're not apologizing either side. And we're not going to lower that standard at all to try to comment, say, geez, this is so difficult to do both. Oh, that's what it is. You're like a farmer in harvest. And it's a lot of fun too. Fun without excellence nor excellence without fun isn't very fun. And one of the things that make things fun is being excellent at it. One of the way to be excellent at it takes a ton of work. It just takes an absolute ton of work. And so we're not going to ever apologize for that. And we think we're preparing them for life. There's going to be all kinds of pitfalls and tough stuff in their marriage and raising kids and their job. Well, they've learned to overcome things. They've learned to stay with it. They've learned to battle through, find a way. Again, face it, fight it, overcome it. That's the rule. Face it, fight it, overcome it. That's how we handle adversity. It's called perseverance. Perseverance, really easy to say, Jay, really easy to talk about, really easy to write down, very tough to follow through and do. And you find out when things aren't going the way you wanted in life, whatever that may be. So, anyway, yeah, it's fun building this thing that we're in right now.
It's definitely been fun watching you guys throughout the year. What's been one of your favorite memories as a coach so far at George Fox?
Well, there's many of them, that's for sure. Obviously winning the first game that we had won is one. Just coming back and doing it, Jay, has been a great memory for me. I don't know if you're aware of this. I grew up a block from George Fox as a kid.
I saw that players used to eat dinner at your house on weekends sometimes, right?
Yeah. My brother Pat and I were down, whatever sport it was, we were unofficial ball boys, bat boys. So I was a ball boy on the last football team there in 1968. Now I'm back coaching there. Pat, after he got done playing minor league baseball, coached at George Fox for several years in baseball before he went on to Oregon State as the longtime baseball coach. So it's just, the memories of Newburgh. I mean, all 7 kids graduated from Newburgh High School. I was just at Newburgh High School the other day graduating or recruiting. And I was talking to him about the head wrestling coach there. His dad, the current head wrestling coach, his dad was my 9th grade football coach and PE teacher. And I was just talking to him at the school the other day. So, just a lot of great memories about Newburgh and George Fox sports. And, when they dropped football, I think that was difficult for the campus. Football has been so tremendous for the community, the alumni network. We have a group called the Bruin Football Club of the guys who last played in the 60s. You talk about memories. They were sitting in a room with me the first week I took the job. Jay, we're reading on a laminated letter that was given to them or that was read to the team when they dropped football. There was about 14 or 15 of those guys in there that are now the Bruin Football Club, along with the parents that are in our program, are also a part of the Bruin Football Club. But these guys were literally weeping and crying as that letter was being read. The first week I was back, and the first week I, went to the office and started in at George Fox that first week in January, they were crying and weeping that football was back, how much it meant to them, and so, that's a great memory. There's, we won some games right at the end of the game in the last couple of years. Howard Payne 2 years ago, Redlands 2 years ago, Whitworth 3 years ago. I mean, at the end of the game, had to make a play to win the game. They threw the ball in the end zone. We were up 16-10. We had to make an unbelievable play. Lucas Schwinn, one of our DBs, Sanaka, pass away to come out of nowhere. Just so there's been many memories like that. But for me, always the first and best memories, all in coaching of everything, is when our guys, you see them years later, and they thank you for what they're, that they know it's been a big part of their life and it's had an impact on their life, and things they're doing now at that time that they're being successful at, they can attribute it back to what they learned playing football for you. I mean, that's always the greatest memories.
Amazing
Things.
I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I got 5 questions we like to ask everyone at the end of the interviews. Do you have time for that?
You bet. I got time. I always got time for people that are working hard doing things right. And you've put a lot of research into this. And again, I'm very pleased that you're that kind of person, Jay, that you're doing excellence, championship level at your job. And that's the way to do things. So I'm happy to give you more time.
Appreciate it. So you're at a gas station. You're going to go on a super long road trip. What's your go-to snack and your go-to drink?
Oh boy. Well, I tell you, I like nuts a ton. So I think any kind of nut, maybe almonds, cashews. And then my favorite drink is cranberry juice. And it's supposed to be really good for your colon too. So you get a 2 for 1. You want to get 2s, 3s, and 4s for 1 in life, Jay. I tell our players that all the time. Like when I go out walk and jog an hour every day. I find some way to get it in. Well, when I walk, jog, number 1, I say prayers for people in need. Number 2, I return phone calls unless it's a really late night walk, jog, which sometimes happen. I return messages, and I'm getting exercise. I'm getting a 3 for 1. It's kind of like we tell our guys, you run everywhere you go on the field. If you run everywhere you go on the field, number 1, you get to places faster. You get from one place to the next real fast. You get more reps. You get better. Number 2, you're making a habit of hustling. Those 2 things are from Coach Retchman. Well, I added on to that, you're getting running technique and you're getting conditioning. So you're getting a 4 for 1 by running everywhere you go on the field. If you're getting 1s for 1 again in life, this day and age, because things happen so fast, probably losing whatever you're doing. So you want to get multiple 2s, 3s, and 4s for 1. But anyway, yeah, that's an answer to that question.
That's good stuff. So when I go to shower, get the 3 in 1, really multitask there, get it all going.
Yeah. 2s and 3s and 4s for 1.
Who's your favorite athlete of all time?
Well, my favorite current athlete is Dak Prescott. I love his toughness. I just love the kind of human being he is. Favorite athlete of all time. Michael Jordan would certainly be at the top of the list. Tremendous competitor, just refused to lose. I think in football, my favorite athlete of all time is Barry Sanders.
Okay.
I wish he would have kept playing. I tell you, guy scores a touchdown and goes over and hands the ball to the official. Guy was so great as a player and yet so humble as a human being. I mean, every time I ever heard the guy speak, you could hardly hear him speak because he was so quiet. He was so humble. Just a tremendous example for all of us to live by.
What's your favorite time of the year? The cliche answer here is football season. We know that. But if we take that away from you, what's your favorite time of the year?
Christmas, number 1, Christ's birth.
There you go.
I just love everything that goes with Christmas. Family. I like winters. My favorite, weather season. In Spokane, we got snow all the time when I was at Whitworth. So yeah, Christmas.
That's a good one.
Great family time.
All right, so I have to ask, because my family, we have this debate. My sisters aren't a big fan of football games on Christmas. I think it's the best thing ever. I mean, you open up presents and then you get to watch football. I mean, what's your opinion on that one?
Well, it's just part of the, I just call it as part of, it's the American way. On Thanksgiving, Christmas, you got to watch football games. Tell your sisters, they're living in America, and that's just the American deal, man. You got to eat a lot of food, open presents, eat a lot of food on Thanksgiving, and watch football games. And on Christmas, you got to not only eat a lot of food, you got to open a lot of presents and then watch football games.
All right, I'll let them know.
I'll tell you that my favorite movie of all time is The Sound of Music. You probably don't know what The Sound of Music is. Do you know what The Sound of Music? You know what movie I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
Yeah, well, it was 1965. I was 7 years old. But anyway, The sounding, and I'm a very devout Catholic. It's a really neat true story about a Catholic family. But movies like that, I would even watch above football games, like It's a Wonderful Life, Sound of Music, Miracle on 34th Street. If it's a Christmas movie, I'll even watch that above a football game. So tell your sisters that even though I'm a football coach, it's still family first.
They do love Miracle on 34th Street. Actually went to Bishop Blanchette High School up here in Seattle, Washington. So I was raised in Catholic schools from K through 12. So
okay, so Jay, yeah,
it's there. What's your favorite sports team at the high school, college, and pro level? But you can't pick anywhere you've coached before, so you got to go all new here.
Well, my favorite high school team would be the Newburgh Tigers, because that's where I went to school and I haven't coached there.
Here you go.
My favorite college football team is Notre Dame. That's the Catholic in me. My favorite, what was the last one? Any pro team in any sport or football?
Yep, any pro team in any sport.
Well, right now, for sure, it's the Baltimore Orioles, because of Adley Rutschman. That's Coach Rutschman's grandson. And Adley played for Pat, my brother, at Oregon State. Sherwood, where he went to school, is about 8 miles from Newburgh, where George Fox is at. And I remember when Adley, so right now it'd be the Baltimore Orioles for sure in baseball. It's the Dallas Cowboys in football again because of Dak Prescott. The NBA obviously would be the Blazers. I wish Seattle would have never gotten rid of basketball up there. That's such a great sports town. But a quick story about Adley. When he first got drafted, we were having our football camps at George Fox at the time, and he'd been drafted a couple of weeks before, I think it was, but the draft was. But his dad, Randy, who I know real well, again, one of Coach Rutschman's sons. So this is Adley Rutschman is Coach Rutschman's grandson. Anyway, Randy called and said, "Hey, I know you guys in the middle of your camps, but we can't find where to hit. Every time we go somewhere, we get mobbed by people." He went to an ice cream shop, and there was like 100 people wanted Adley's autograph. So he said, "We're trying to find a place to hit." I said, "Well, come on over." He said, "I know you guys were using the baseball and softball outfield for part of your camps with walkthrough stuff and warm-ups and stuff that teams are doing when they're not on the main 2 fields." I said, "No, come on over. We'll work the thing out." Anyway, I hadn't seen Adley since the draft, so Adley gets out of the car, and I said, "Hey, Adley, I got 5 words for you." It actually was 6, but I said, "I got 5 words for you. Humility, 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 and humility." I said, "You're a very humble person, young man." And we recruited the heck out of him to come to George Fox as a baseball player. In fact, he was very serious about George Fox recruiting against Pat at Oregon State with the deal. But he's a tremendous, humble guy, human being. He just is. Just completely, that's the way he was raised. And I said, if you stay that way, you're going to have a hell of a baseball career. But you got to stay that way. That's the right way to be, number one, but you're going to have a hell of a baseball career. You stay that way. It's really fun rooting for him, just knowing what kind of human being he is. They did a couple stories on him, and just because of my connection with Coach Rutschman, they had called me on a couple stories, and the writers there said it's unbelievable the impact he's had on the city of Baltimore because of the kind of human being he is. Notwithstanding his performance on the baseball field, just the way he operates in life has impacted the whole city. I mean, there's a couple of writers that told me that. Again, it shows athletics. In life, are you a bridge builder? Do you bring people together? Are you a fence builder? I tell our football team this probably 25 times, 50 times a season, Jay. If society to act like our football team, society to be an unbelievable place. Athletics unifies people. If it's handled right by coaches and done right, it's the right team setting, what's going on. Athletics, we got guys from LA, Honolulu, Seattle, San Diego, Bay Area. They're best friends with a guy from John Day, Oregon, 1,000 people in a farming community in Eastern Oregon, out in the middle of, farmland. You got people, again, we're proud that we're a Christian college, but we got guys on our team that have been all 12 years of private Christian education, best friends with a guy on our team who's never been to church. look at all the differences in whatever ethnicity, background, religion, where you're from, how big a high school, geographics, and everybody has a common goal. Everybody supports each other. Everybody, when there's adversity, you don't pull apart, you pull together. Unbelievable. Every society could learn so much from a football team and any sports team. Football, I think, is the ultimate team sport. These guys out of high school and college today will have relationships the rest of their life from people they played with in football. So there's great meaning and value, and it's so necessary and needed in our society right now.
Amazing. Thank you. And the last question.
Yeah.
Are you a country music fan by any chance?
Well, I don't know if you know who Jimmy Buffett is. I was a big Jimmy Buffett fan, and he's kind of Caribbean country, soft rock. But I'm my oldies is my favorite, kind of the 60s, and for me, oldies the 60s and 70s, and kind of the 80s. So the Beatles, Jimmy Buffett, Lionel Richie, Journey, Rolling Stones. Kind of 60s, 70s, 80s.
Well, there's a guy now.
What about you? What are you?
A little bit of everything. I like country. I like rap. If you were like driving in a car with me and we drove an hour, you'd probably hear about 15 different genres, and you look at me sideways and be like, "Dude, there's no consistency here," and it's true.
That's good. That's good. Our special teams coordinator's like that.
Yes,
he is. He likes every form of music and always brags about it. And he plays every form of music. And but yeah, and I love Christmas carols this time of the year.
Yeah,
I'm a big time Christmas carol guy. I'm a very traditional guy as far as kind of just American values and things like that. I'm very simple and traditional in a lot of ways. But yeah, Elton John. I mean, you could go on and on with this kind of 60s, 70s, 80s.
Oh yeah.
Deal. Elvis. All the Motown. I love Motown music. Aretha Franklin, probably my favorite female singer. She was ranked the top singer of all time by this one group. They ranked her first and Elvis second, and Paul McCartney third, I think it was. So she was ranked as the top singer of all time. Tina Turner, the song "You Are the Best." You know that song?
Yeah.
Okay, so after we won the state title in 2010, one of my sons was still playing basketball. I was in high school playing basketball at Lois. So when we'd go back for Christmas break, he'd go to the gym, play basketball. I'd go downstairs. I had over 300 emails to answer. I answered every single solitary message that came to me from congratulatory message. There was over 300 emails in a couple-day period. But I listened to "You Are the Best" by Tina Turner over and over again the whole time I was returning email. The whole time, like for 2 hours.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite songs of all time.
Yeah, it's got a good connotation to it.
Yeah, well, and I love because we won it. I loved it. And the other song we listened to was "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey.
Oh yeah, it's a classic.
In the song, so we got beat by Jesuits 69-0 our first year, Jay, or second year at Loa. It was 55-0 at halftime. They scored the first two drives of the second half. It was 69-0. I remember looking at Bill Volk, who again took over for me as the head coach and been there before. I said, "Bill, I'm new here." I think it was our first year. I said, I'm new here, as you know, and kind of facetiously, and said, "Does that scoreboard go up to triple digits?" But anyway, I stay at the office till about 2:00 in the morning that night, Jay, and I'm sitting at the corner of 185th and Farmington, which is a main thoroughway. Loa's on 185th. I'm sitting there 2:00 in the morning, right at the light, and right across the street was Buddy's Bar and Grill. It's a sports bar and grill. And I got tears running down my eyes because I'm just wondering, geez, am I going to be able to do this? I mean, I questioned whether I could help turn that thing around. I remember saying, and I said, if I can get up on that reader board at Buddy's, and if we can fill the grandstands, at least we can say, you know, we've accomplished something. But the theme song came out of that, from that, and really, I did. I questioned. There's, you know, I can be pretty fragile at times too, and I questioned whether, geez, is what I'm doing with identity and all that stuff going to work here? But we finally won a game against the Beaverton school, which they hadn't won against the Beaverton school in several years, and that kind of opened the floodgates again. That thing about winning and gives you confidence. But I told the guy who was the director of operations for us, I said, hey, we're going to beat a Beaverton school this year. I told him that before the season. By God, my wife and I are going to dance out on the Aloha A at midfield after the game when everybody's gone to Don't Stop Believing. Well, he wasn't supposed to tell anybody. So we beat a Beaverton school, and it had been the first time in several years, because they hadn't beat a Beaverton school for several years before we got there, and we didn't beat one the first few years. But I told him going that season we're going to beat one. And by the way, after we beat a Beaverton school, we went 22-2 the next 2 years and won the state title. Shows what, again, winning first leads to confidence, which tells you to continue to win. 22-2. And the only two losses, one was the Sheldon, who won the state title that year in the playoffs, and the other one was Tualatin in the regular season. And Tualatin's the one we beat in the state championship game, the state championship year. But anyway, he told somebody, well, it got around. We went out there to dance on the A to Don't Stop Believing. There's like 400 people out there surrounding the A. And then the Oregonian found out about it. And I said, well, we don't, you know, we're just kind of humble people. We don't want any kind of thing done on this thing. They said, well, we saw it on YouTube, and won't you talk to us a little bit about it? And so anyway, they did a dang front page, sports page article on the thing of myself dancing on the A with my wife. Don't Stop Believing. But anyway, our guys at Fox, we have some guys from that Aloha team on our coaching staff. Well, the first Friday at Fox, we always go in the locker room and name captains for that game. So we have new captains for every game and have a team meeting. Well, they played Don't Stop Believing that very first Friday of the very first year, the very first game back at George Fox for that next game on Saturday. And now it's a tradition. They play Don't Stop Believing together as a team every single Friday when we're in the locker room. And so to look at a group of guys all together singing together to a song, just the unity and togetherness, unbelievable. Again, a football locker room, a football team.